Okay, so in this talk I will introduce you to Sylius e-commerce, and the goal of this talk is really to not teach you how to use Sylius, because it's very hard to compress the whole history and architecture and everything in 30 minutes. So I just want to get you excited. I want to convince you and maybe give you some tips on how to convince your bosses or management to move away from in-house or existing solutions and basically be a brave early adopter. So my name is Paweł Jędrzejewski. I started the project around 2011. This is the time where when the first bits of code were written. I also co-founded a company called Lakion, where we do basically everything related to Sylius. So we build applications from scratch. I do consulting and training for teams who want to use Sylius technology. So what is Sylius? Sylius is e-commerce platform for PHP. So obviously it's based on Symfony, but I avoid word web shop or a shop, because while it can be used as a basic shop that you see every day or use every day for shopping, it's basically a foundation which you can use as it is. But most of the time, currently, you build your own system on top of that. So it's a platform. Few numbers to give you some perspective on what we are doing and what we have achieved. So it's over 160 code contributors, from small patches to whole bundles and whole modules. Sylius, together with the components, has been downloaded over 500,000 times. There's over 2,500 people translating it into different languages. I can't wait to wrap up the whole work that they did. It's been running in production for some websites. It's been almost 2 years now. Of course, very early versions of the bundles and so on. It's thousands of man hours invested into improving it, improving the architecture, developing new features, fixing bugs, and so on. It's also a combined experience of everyone who was at any point in the time involved in this project. And I mentioned that because it's important to realize the amount of effort that goes into every open source project, be it Symfony, Sylius, even the smallest libraries. Because often people like the safe zone, so they like to stick with the existing solution which works for them and they do business with it. Or they also want to develop their own solution from scratch. And I think by now everyone should be aware that in-house solution can be only better than open source if you open source it early enough. It doesn't make sense to build your own in-house solution, especially for e-commerce, because I don't even say that you must use Sylius. It just use what is in the market if you don't want to go to Symfony. So, first question, why new e-commerce in the market? We have Magento, we have other solutions which have like most of the market. This picture may be a bit of an overstatement, but I think the current solutions represent the old PHP, so the old PHP way of doing things. They are monolithic, so if you decide to go with an existing solution, most of the time you are stuck with the whole platform, so you can't pick the things that you like and use them. You have to go with the features that were implemented by the creators and contributors. They're often untestable or test immune, name it like you like. They are not developer friendly, and that's really important because let's take Symfony as an example. The difference between Symfony1 and Symfony2 is huge. It's like release of Symfony2 was like a groundbreaking change, and anyway, people enjoyed working with Symfony. Of course, like any project, there were some problems, some annoying things, but people generally liked Symfony and enjoyed working with it. If you look at the e-commerce market, there is so much hate going on towards existing solutions. People are frustrated, and it's not a rule that if project is on the market for a few years, there is no rule that it has to be hated by the people. It means something. It means that maybe at the time of building the product, developers were not a concern. It was about putting more features for the business. And this is one of the reasons for that I believe there is a place for new e-commerce in the market, because I think quite a lot of you work at some agencies, and basically imagine that you start your year with a WordPress project, you build some application on WordPress, then you move to Symfony, to some custom application, custom development, and then you need to go back to some of the, let's say, old PHP world. It's like getting back from holidays. It sucks. So you would prefer to stay on this cool island, which is Symfony. Basically, Symfony sets some standards for us, and when you discover how good Symfony is, how pleasant to work with it, how much you enjoy working with it, then there is a problem that your expectations are higher. You don't want to deal with all the legacy that existing projects have. Obviously, reinventing the wheel is really bad, and you shouldn't do it. But wheel is a solution to a problem. So if your wheel looks kind of like this, you may think about replacing it with something new. So it's the same problem, very similar solution, but built upon the experience of previous projects. So new solutions learn from mistakes of the past, and but the good sides and bad sides, obviously. So how does it look? Is it any pretty? Currently not so pretty, because it's a prototype. It's basically Twitter Bootstrap that we use to test the features. You also need to know that Sylius project started as a set of bundles. It was my pet project that I have been working on when starting with Symfony, and then we decided that it makes sense to build a platform from these components. So it was not a planned or organized project in the beginning, and we end up with this kind of thing, which is not so tempting if you look at the outside of this project. But I've been working for the past few months with agency from Poland to build a new responsive team, which will ship with Sylius as a default. It will be fully responsive for mobile devices. It is very generic, so it doesn't. It's not connected to any type of merchandise. You can see some fancy shoes here, but these are obviously just examples. And this is the foundation that you will be able to build upon. And it's really flexible, because I actually already started implementing the homepage. I think in the first quarter of next year we will be able to ship with this fully new default theme. The thing to note, but I'll talk about the CMF integration a bit later in the talk, is that everything you see here and in the previous slide will be editable through CMF. So I actually started implementing these blocks where you can select which product you should display, what kind of banner. It's all really flexible. We don't want to turn Sylius into a CMS, but still I think CMF is really powerful, and we will make a use from that. So what you can build using Sylius, because I said it runs in production, so it seems like you can build something with it. There's quite a lot of websites built on Sylius, many different ones. I'm always excited when someone mails me with some new project. What's interesting about these websites is that some of them were built with just with a set of components from Sylius, let's say a cart or a products catalog. Some of them are running Sylius full stack. This one is our latest work from Lakion, where we build the whole website on Sylius full stack together with a lot of CMS functionality with CMF. And the plan is to move this obviously to Sylius core. So Also, one of the reasons that I think we need some new e-commerce solution is that it's a fancy phrase, but e-commerce has changed. And if you're a developer, you sometimes forget about the whole business behind what you're doing, behind the technology. But if you look at what merchants are doing right now, they compete at almost every possible level. Quality of images, pricing, that's obvious. User experience of their e-commerce platform. They go mobile, they build the native mobile apps and so on. So there's a lot of competition between merchants in e-commerce, and in order to compete, you need to innovate, and to innovate, you need flexibility. So that's one of the main things that I'm trying to build into the philosophy of Sylius project since its early stage. So what really makes Sylius different than what we have on the market? Because it's not enough to say that, hey, this is new, and the other projects are bad because they are old. So there need to be a good reason for creating a new platform. So first of all, Sylius is a set of PHP commerce components. Basically, it doesn't matter what kind of framework are you using, you can still benefit from the components. If you are, and that's very important also for legacy applications. So let's say that you have a legacy application built on custom framework or some other solution. You can take the Sylius components, not even move to Symfony from the beginning, but take Sylius components, move some parts of functionality, of e-commerce functionality that you have on your website to the components, and then migrate step by step, because I think we all know, and I hope you learn this the easy way, so from someone else more experienced and not the hard way, that the only efficient recipe for moving away from legacy is step by step. There is also this set of bundles, Symphony Bundles, and here the story is very similar. Every single bundle integrates one component into Symfony. So you have the configuration there, service definitions, all the Symfony specific stuff that you can't use anywhere else than in Symfony. So forms, tweak extension and stuff like that. I already have an idea about building some bridges, for example, for the forms, doctrine repositories, and tweak extensions, but I already spent a good amount of time on the architecture. And all this combined is Sylius platform. So a fully functional e-commerce, let's call it web shop, that you can use as it is or customize to your needs, and it's really flexible. So quick overview about the components and the bundles. Sylius has its e-commerce toolset. So these are the things that you will enjoy if you're an e-commerce developer. What is important to note again, every single one of these components is fully decoupled. So let's imagine that you have some Symfony application. It can be a bookstore, and maybe book catalog, where you have some book entity and you have a whole management panel to edit this catalog, and your customer says that, hey, I would like to have some basic shopping cart. Maybe I don't want to even process the payments. I just want to allow the users of the of the application to select some books and place an order. So what can you do? Take the cart component, actually the cart bundle if this is a Symfony application, integrate it into the system, and you have a working shopping cart. Next month, the customer says, okay, but maybe we need to apply some taxes and display them on the invoices. You take the taxation component and integrate it. So I think that's a great advantage of Sylius over other solutions, that you can pick what you like, or even take the full platform, remove the inventory system, and replace it with something else of your own. Obviously, it requires implementing some interfaces, but there is no coupling between the components. The only components here are which are coupled is cart and order. And there's also a generic toolset of Sylius. So these are components which do not really touch the e-commerce area. So you can use them from any application. I highlighted the resource component. because it's something very useful for any Symfony developer. I don't have enough time to explain the whole concept, but basically you don't need to write a single line of controller for the basic CRUD and API of any entity, and it works with Doctrine or MongoDB PHP content repository. I looked it up on the documentation because it's really cool. So, quick overview of the Sylius platform. Sylius platform is nothing more than two more bundles. So it's a core and its web interface. And as you probably suspect, the web interface is decoupled from the core. So let's say that you build an e-commerce API for a mobile app. You don't need the front end. You don't need the front end of the store. Throw away the web bundle. Use the core, you have the API. Obviously there is Symfony and Doctrine, but there are two quite big projects included in the Sylius stack that I want to mention. It's the CMF, which is probably known to you. But we use currently the integration in the app is not very deep. It's just you can create a slideshow, you can create some image block, banners, menus, and so on. But for example, for this project, we integrated CMF really deeply. So every product displayed on the page is a block. You can select what kind of category to display and so on. This is a cool thing. It's inline editing, because CMF integrates very well with a tool called create.js, so you get inline editing in minutes. The second project is Paweł. Paweł is a really awesome project, and Maxim, who is maybe here or maybe on the other talk, he put a lot of work into this project. It's basically another framework within Sylius. It's a whole abstraction over the payment processing logic. So it's not really a payment gateway where you just focus on processing or handling the payment. It's the whole process of handling the payments. So it's not a gateway. It integrates with quite a lot of gateways, and it's not even a full list. Since version 0.12 of Sylius, all you need to do to use a payment gateway is just configure in the config. So that's really cool. Obviously, Sylius is clean code. Don't repeat yourself, solid kiss, and all the obvious stuff, because it's not something to brag about, I think. With Symfony, it's obvious. This is the Symfony way of doing things. But important fact about Sylius being based on Symfony is that it's the most important interface in the Symfony stack, so HTTP kernel interface. This Sylius being based on Symfony means it can integrate very well with other Symfony stack applications, so Oro CRM, Akeneo, Drupal, Easy Publish. And by integrate, I mean a completely different level of integration. So it's not just APIs communicating with each other. It's kind of, I recently named it native integration, where you have, for example, this is a real world project built by Locastic and NetGen guys. Sylius and Easy Publish living within one single kernel. You create products in Easy Publish, all the content related to it, and we know how good Easy Publish is in terms of CMS, and that also creates a product in Sylius. So the inventory, pricing, the whole e-commerce flow is handled by Sylius. And it's not APIs, it's single security layer through Symfony. It's single request flow, shared services, and so on. Next big thing about Sylius is PHP spec and Behat. This is not a BDD talk, so I won't go into details, but obviously it's a bit different from what you see in commercial projects, where you have agile processes, clear stakeholders, and you know who is responsible for what and so on. But we are doing our best to do the proper BDD for Sylius, and that means full stack BDD, so story BDD with Behat and spec BDD with PHP spec for the inner quality and outer quality. What's cool about using Behat is that we get kind of free documentation. You go to the scenario, you look through the scenarios, and you see how tax categories work in Sylius. That's a great documentation for newcomers. Then it goes to Travis CE on every change, and is executed as an acceptance test. So we immediately get results if the business rules written by developers, but still business rules, are satisfied. Of course, this results in quite good code quality, and you need to remember that this is a quite big code base already. and some bits of the code were written over 2 years ago when I started on the bundles. But still, compared to the existing solutions, the difference is really significant. So show me some code. The brightness is not very good, but I hope you will see. So how flexible is Sylius? We really invested a lot of time into making it as extensible as possible. And you don't have only one way of extending things. You have obviously events, which you can hook into. You have model. Important thing to note here is that a lot of things happen behind the scenes. So all the relations in the doctrine are updated automatically to use the new class. So you don't have to override the whole system in order to just update the relations. Forms use your new product class. When creating new product, your class is used, and so on. Same with the forms. You extend the base form type or build your own form type. You can also have like 10 different form types and configure via routing, which should be used in an edit action. But you basically add new fields, remove what you don't like, configure it again, and it's done. It's visible in the backend and it just works. And it's true as well for controller and repository. So that's just one way of overriding things. Obviously, you have all the tools that Symfony gives you, so you can alias a service, override it completely, write a compiler pass, and so on. It's really flexible. We make a great use of tags in Symfony container. So, for example, we have this system of calculators. So a calculator is usually a simple service which has a configuration and a method that includes all the computing logic. For example, for the shipping costs or the product price or some promotion action, and for taxes as well. So obviously Sylius ships with some default calculators, but all you need to do to introduce, for example, a completely different pricing scheme for a product, you need to create a service, implement this interface, register it in the container with a tag, for example, Sylius.pricing calculator, and it will automatically appear in the backend for the end users, so that they can go select this new pricing scheme from the list, configure it, and next time someone adds this product to the cart, this pricing is used. And as you can imagine, you have full control over what is happening in this calculator. It can call an external API to calculate the shipping costs. That's not very efficient, but still, you can do this. You can do pretty much anything there. So, how to get started? Of course, you can install a single component, and you can use the Sylius full platform. With full Sylius, you have two repositories. The first repository is Sylius/Sylius, which is the repository where the whole development happens. Here we build new things, and whole Sylius code lives in the source folder. Then we basically the same scheme as Symfony uses. So then we split. There is a command running every few hours which splits it into a separate repositories. The Sylius Standard Edition is the same case as with Symfony as well. So this is Sylius default installation, but you have Sylius inventors. So you can just run composer update to get the latest stuff from Sylius. Sylius install command. This will ask you a few simple questions and you're ready to use. We also have a web installer, but to be honest, I haven't looked at it for quite some time because it's just not a priority. We kind of develop it for fun. But it turns out that, for example, I think that's still true, but I haven't checked in a while. Aura CRM and Akeneo use the same installer system from Sylius, so that's pretty cool. Probably some of you have been following the Sylius project, so you will most likely enjoy some update on what is happening now. I know that my GitHub activity may be a bit lower recently, but our lovely community is replacing me. But we have been busy with some real-world Sylius projects, and we accepted only projects which allow us to contribute back to Sylius. So for these two projects that we did recently, we implemented pretty crazy stuff. The thing I mentioned already, so deeper CMF integration, flexible multi-channel. So Sylius goes multi-store. You can have many different stores within one installation, which is pretty cool. You can configure different payment methods, different products, shipping methods, and so on. It's fully configurable. Multi-warehouse. So as you know, Sylius, as you maybe know, Sylius inventory was quite simple. So it was a single location, single warehouse system. Now what we did is multi-warehouse. So every item can live in a different warehouse, and we can ship from many locations. And that's the cool thing to note here is that Sylius has been preparing for that for a long time. So Sylius supports multiple shipments per order since a long time. What we did is, by default, we generated just one shipment. Now when this multi-warehouse is in, we generate more than one shipment, and you can select a shipping method for every single one, and check out and so on. Full RESTful JSON and XML API, and I think it's a really good quality API. It's built on all the Symfony tools, so REST bundle, 8OS, library, and so on. It supports both JSON and XML. It's something is already started in the repository, but we took it for a project and expanded so it's fully functional. You can create orders via API, customers, and so on. The thing that is missing for this to be merged into core is moving it from our fork and implementing the OAuth authentication, which is also started. Orm and Elasticsearch search engine. That's really cool. So since like a few weeks, I think, or even a week, I don't remember when I merged it, Sylius had no search system. And still, all the shops used Elasticsearch bundle, Elastica bundle, and had the search up and running in a few days, but we wanted to have something default. So thanks to a company from London, it's a fashion brand called Wist, so it's not an agency, but they have a very strong team. I did the training for them, and they are building their next platform on top of Sylius. So what they did is they implemented tons of other stuff, but this is the biggest one, I think. So you get a quite powerful search engine with Sylius, which supports ORM for smaller installations and for demo purposes, but it transparently works with Elasticsearch as well, and that's what you should probably use. And the last thing, what I need to do is clone Ryan Weaver and find someone to work on documentation. So you can read some docs on docs.sylius.org. You can visit the project website. You can go to GitHub repository and have a look at the code, look around, see how many issues I have to deal with every day, and hit this magic star button. And thank you. That's Sylius in a nutshell. If you have any questions,